Good morning and welcome to the first of our Harbour Times exit interviews with Consul Generals. It's very appropriate today that we are speaking with Ian Burchett. When Harbour Times launched, he was the first Consul General to do a profile interview with us, and he is going to be the first to do an exit interview. Of course, we're very sad to see him go. He's been an absolute boon, both to his own Canadian community, which is also my community, but also I think to the larger diplomatic community that have had tremendous respect for the work he's done here. We were fortunate the Canadian government gave him an extra year extension beyond the normal 3-year posting. Must have been doing a great job, and we're very excited to hear today about some of his thoughts as he comes to the end of his time in Hong Kong. So Ian, thank you very much for doing the interview with us today.
Good. Thank you very much, Andrew, and welcome back to the official residence of Canada here in Jardines Lookout. We have been collaborating quite a bit over the last few years, and I've certainly appreciated your support. And I know that my colleagues, both the long-standing locally engaged colleagues, as well as the Canadian diplomats who have been working alongside me at the team, have truly appreciated our engagement with you and your readers.
Okay, well thank you, I appreciate that. And you've got a good team, so
Absolutely.
It's always good working with them.
Yeah.
So we've got a few questions that we wanted to talk about today about the Arctic career, but I did want to recognize the fact, since we're here in the residence, that one of the great things you did while you were here was you threw open the doors of the residence to the broader community. Fortunately, you've got a great facility to do that. I think maybe not all the Consul Generals are as lucky as you are in that respect, but I mean, you really opened the doors and made it available. Before we get into some of the other perspectives that you have, maybe you can just talk about what your thinking was behind that and why you made your home so open to the public.
Well, here at the official residence, it's really an extension of the office.
Yeah.
And we can showcase Canada in a more relaxed atmosphere and also serve Canadian food that is available in the Hong Kong market,
yeah,
as well as fine Canadian wines, which are a big hit here in Hong Kong,
yeah,
beer, as well as spirits. And we are seeing over the past few years an increasing interest by the very discriminating tastes of the Hong Kong consumers to look at fine Canadian products, seafood from British Columbia, beef from Alberta, lobster from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and some of the very interesting products that come from Ontario and Quebec as well.
Yeah, I mean that, and the artwork that you've brought in. I know we noticed the change. Of course, some of the artwork I'm sure was property of the Canadian government, but for those of us that had been here before, we noticed some of the personal touches you brought in your own artwork, which was really, really cool.
Thank you very much. I wanted to bring a piece of my home with me. I have the privilege of serving here as Consul General, but also, as I say to many of our guests and friends like you, I live above the shop, and so this is my home, and I wanted our guests to feel at home here and in that environment. And as you can hear, the dogs, Sherman and Rufus, are barking away at the back there, and this is their home too, and so we've enjoyed that very much.
Okay, if you wanted to make people feel welcome, mission accomplished.
Thank you very much.
Well done. So let's get into some of the other details about your time here in Hong Kong. So again, normally Canadian diplomats do 3 years. You were able to get an extension for 4. And can you talk a little bit about the arc of what you saw during your time? You were here during some very, very eventful times in Hong Kong history, some big milestones for Canada, but can you talk a little bit about the arc of your time here in Hong Kong?
Well, I arrived in April of 2012, and as you recall, I think we met on the very first night at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce dinner, welcoming dinner for me, and I found that the engagement of the Canadian business community here to be absolutely terrific and very supportive of what we're trying to do through the Trade Commissioner's Service to advance Canada's trade and investment ties with Hong Kong and through Hong Kong, along with the Canadian University Association, the Chinese Canadian Association, and the newly revamped Canadian Club. And these are all organizations which represent the huge diaspora population here, of 300,000 plus Canadian passport holders.
Yeah.
What I really enjoy about Hong Kong is the fact that you can't go anywhere in this city without running into a Canadian. In fact, when I first arrived, I used to get into elevators, and rather than turning around and facing the door, I would face the rest of the passengers who were in the short, small confined space, and ask them, how many of you are Canadian, how many of you have family back here? And invariably there was always somebody.
Yeah.
Rather off-putting it sometimes to the other fellow passengers, but always enjoyable to have that kind of warm discussion
I
and
bet.
engagement. And
And anybody ever try to pigeonhole you? They were like, "Oh, really? You're the consul general. I want to talk to you about." Did that ever happen? Or were
oh,
people just-
absolutely. I mean,
really?
people that would ask, questions about what we were doing, or a particular government policy, or how the services of the Consulate General could help them, and that's what we're here for. We're here
Yeah.
to serve Canadian interests in Hong Kong, and I was always delighted and pleased to engage with them,
Cool.
and to, with my team, provide the best possible service for Hong Kongers
Yeah.
to grow and expand their ties to Canada. And we have to remember that there are 500,000 people of Hong Kong descent
Yeah.
living back in Canada, mostly in Vancouver and Toronto, but in other cities as well.
Yeah.
And so they have a very important role to play in those bilateral ties. And then, of course, the expanding Canadian community here. 200 Canadian companies have offices here in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
We're using Hong Kong as our platform for the rest of Asia. We've got companies who've been here for over 115 years. These historic ties go back a long way.
Yeah.
And as you know, the role in which Canadians played in the defense of Hong Kong in 1941
Sure.
has been very important to Canada and to the Canadian community here. And thanks to my team, I was able to meet with a number of people through the Hong Kong Veterans Association and engage with them on a regular basis to honor those Canadians and others who fought to defend Hong Kong in 1941.
Yeah.
And that service at Saiwan every year is very special. And this year will be the 75th anniversary
Okay.
of the Battle of Hong Kong.
Okay. So with that huge Canadian community here, I mean, it reaches all throughout society and right into the highest levels of Hong Kong government, where you've got people like Gregory So, who's former Canadian, the Secretary for the Environment, did his degree at UBC, and you interact a lot. Can you talk a little bit about your interaction with the Hong Kong government over the 4 years, like what you learned from when you first got here to 4 years later?
Well, I think what I really noticed right away is that the people know Canada.
Yeah,
They have been in Canada, they've studied in Canada, they've lived in Canada, they have family in Canada. And so what we were trying to do is to engage with them and to expand their awareness
Yeah.
of the opportunities to do more with Canadians, not only on the trade and investment side, but on issues related to civil society, human rights, good governance,
Yeah.
and to share and learn
Yeah.
from those connections. And because of that knowledge of Canada, it was a very easy job to do because they already had a very good base and foundation. Sometimes we had to correct the myths. Sometimes we had to, as I say, expand their horizons, especially when you look at Canada's new economy, innovation, and technology. And we have seen, thanks to the policies and the programs of both the Hong Kong government and the Canadian government, more and more entrepreneurs, startup companies coming to Hong Kong and looking to commercialize their technology and innovation in this incredibly exciting and dynamic economy.
Okay, so when you talk about increasing familiarization, can you talk about some things where either correcting a myth or making people more familiar with something going on in Canada led to something over the 4 years that you can point to and say, this was something that an area where we managed to move the ball forward? Either new trade deals or new agreements?
Well, we've had several new trade arrangements. First of all, in the November of 2012, the Prime Minister was here to sign the avoidance of double taxation agreement.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And that was terrific in that our withholding tax for the transfer of funds between our two jurisdictions was reduced to 5%.
Okay.
We have also established, because of the hard work of the Canadian financial institutions, working with the governments in Ottawa as well in Beijing, the North American hub for trading in the renminbi.
Yeah.
And that will help Canadian companies to do more business on the mainland. And in February, Canada and Hong Kong signed the Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement. And again, another vehicle to help our business do relations and activities in both jurisdictions and protect those investments going forward. So I think that those three elements have been very, very critical.
Yeah.
We have obviously wanted to engage Hong Kong on some of the issues related to good governance, the autonomy of Hong Kong, the rule of law, and the protection of the one country, two systems policy.
Sure.
That's why Canadians are here. That's why Hong Kongers want to continue to be part of China, but distinct from China. And through the Canadian community here and engaging with our friends in Hong Kong, we've been very active in that regard as well.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about what that engagement looks like?
Well, that engagement
on those issues?
Well, there are many areas. We've been speaking to the Hong Kong authorities about why those values are important to the business people living here. And we've also engaged with the Chinese officials here in Hong Kong to reiterate why those values are critical to Canada. And we have always found our interlocutors to be very receptive. I would also, like to give a shout out to the terrific support that I have received and the Consulate General has received from what we say in our business, the like-minded, the other diplomatic missions across Hong Kong who have been incredibly collaborative in working together on a shared agenda related to these important values, not only that are Canadian values, but their values of importance to other countries as well. Okay, now
sometimes those collaborations can be a little more informal and behind the scenes. Is there one or two public ones that you can point to where there's collaboration with the like-minded consuls?
We've in the kind of work we do, there's private conversations that we have and sharing information, and then there's more public activities when we come together in briefing sessions and joint meetings with the Hong Kong administration, and I wouldn't want to forget the Macanese economy as well. And because the diplomatic community have been over in Macau together and spoken with the chief executive and other leaders over there. My responsibility, like other consuls general in Hong Kong, has covered Macau, and we've had that engagement. And in fact, Canada had a very successful event this year called Pop-Up Canada in Macau, where we spent 3 days over 35 events to showcase what Canada had to offer to Macau. And it's been terrific to share that success with people in Hong Kong, including other diplomatic missions.
Okay, and that's for, I guess, for a lot of the Harbour Times people that are in the diplomatic community. I know that most of them have the dual responsibility for Hong Kong and Macau.
Absolutely.
I know, so we'll have a little Macau. Normally we're a Hong Kong focused publication, but we'll have a little Macau shout out, because one thing I noticed you guys did was the pop-up, but you also dramatically ramped up services to Macau, because I don't think we had these kind of, you started this thing where you started doing regular appearances in Macau of consular services. You'd have dates where everybody could.
Yes,
we'd never seen that before.
Well, I'm sure it was there, that what we've been trying to do is to have a more regular engagement with Macau, because of the size and diversity of Hong Kong. It's very easy for us to be consumed by this incredibly dynamic city and not get over to Macau. But my colleagues in the consular session especially have been making regular visits each month to help with passports and citizenship. We have a community of Canadians there of 3,000. The International School of Macau has many Canadian teachers and follows the curriculum of Alberta, and we're very proud of that. And it's expanding now, and it will be even a larger campus. And so that community is very important to us. As well, there are Canadians who are working in the hospitality industry over in Hong Kong, and these are the people, like in Hong Kong, can help us do our job and can be our eyes and ears when we're not there.
Okay, so everybody be on notice. You've got eyes and ears.
Well, I think that we do. I mean, that's the benefit here. It's friends of Canada, supporters of Canada, who can help us better understand. We don't do these things in a vacuum. And that, in that regard, the colleagues at the Consulate General, who are long-standing employees, the locally engaged staff, have been incredibly supportive of the agenda which we as diplomats want to implement in a short period of time. My assignment was for 3 years. I was fortunate, as you say, to have a 4th year here. I've always believed that if you make a friend in Asia, you can do a lot better business. And in that regard, I hope that through the use of the official residence, through the activities we've done, through our Talking Economics series, through our partnership with the different organizations like the Canadian Chamber and the Canadian University Association, that we can expand these ties and bring in a larger constituency to better understand what is new in Canada and how these new elements can contribute to a better Hong Kong, a better Macau, and a better Greater China, and a better Canadian platform in Asia.
Okay. So, bringing it back to Hong Kong, like over the 4 years now, I know you've had a pretty interesting career. And as I said, we profiled the very first profile that we did. You were in New York for the events of September 11th, 2001, and so it's kind of hard to top that in terms of being there for momentous world events. But you were here at a time when Hong Kong had Occupy Central. Then we had the Mong Kok riots, the failure of democratic reform, all these things. Somebody with your depth of experience, is there kind of perspective that you can bring to that, or something you saw? I know that usually official pronouncements for most of the consul generals come from the national capitals, and you don't hear as much from over this side of the water. But I wonder if you had any kind of perspective about how you thought Hong Kong had changed, or anything that you kind of took in during what you've seen during your time here on that front.
I think that Hong Kong as a special administrative region, like Canada, is changing all the time.
Yeah.
And so what our job is to look for the opportunities for engagement and to report back to Ottawa to signal where we can make a difference and to help those people who are not on the ground here better understand the challenges and the opportunities to use Hong Kong as that platform. A platform for engagement not only locally, but regionally in South China, but from Hong Kong across Asia. And as I say, you're quite right, there's been quite a few events and activities, as there will be in the coming fall and next year. And I'm sure that my colleagues at the Consulate General, working very closely with the community here, will be reporting on those. And to continue to advocate Canada's engagement in these areas related to the one country, two systems policy, how important it is, the autonomy of Hong Kong within Greater China, the opportunities for engagement on trade and investment, but also the full support for the rule of law and human rights, and perhaps sharing areas where Canada has had to tackle tough issues related to civil society and engagement. And in that regard, we're always happy to work with our Hong Kong friends to show how Canada has evolved. We haven't always got it right at home. And as you saw recently with the Prime Minister's apology to the Sikh community, I was very happy to go last Sunday to the Sikh temple in Happy Valley and engage with over 1,000 worshippers to read that apology and to share with them the Prime Minister's perspectives and views related to making that apology, and not to be afraid to say that we got it wrong, but we're moving forward. And this is how Canada can do it, and maybe through that send a message where other governments, other societies, other communities can tackle similar challenging issues based on the Canadian experience. And in that regard, I'm very happy with the ties and the friendship that I've had here. I've always felt extremely well supported in the community in that regard. And there's some tough issues that all economies and governments and societies are facing right now. But you have to have that dialogue and that collaboration to move forward. If you just close and stay inside and only look out the window, then it's going to be very difficult to move forward.
So, as you said, there's an interesting year coming up. And unfortunately, you're not going to be here for it. Are you going to miss it? Are you kind of regretting you're not going to be around for some of the next round of fireworks in Hong Kong? Or?
Well, I wouldn't call it fireworks. I think it's just another.
You didn't. I did.
But
that's on me.
But I would say that it's going to be extremely exciting to watch the election returns. I've already said to some of my colleagues, make sure that you keep being informed where things are going, because I'll be very interested to read about it. I've been engaged in following these issues for the last 4 years, and I'm very confident that my successor will do a very, very good job, and will have the full support and engagement of the entire team at the Consulate General, as well as within the community. Will I miss it? When the day you arrive, you know you're going to leave. And so I've always been try to look at it in a positive fashion. I've had some tremendous assignments abroad, and I look forward to keeping in touch with my friends because they have helped me do my job, and through that I've developed some tremendous relationships, and I know that they'll be with me for a long, long time.
Yeah. So in terms of your successor, I mean, any best advice that you wouldn't expect from it? Like I imagine pretty much any posting, you would get engaged with the community. There's, as any diplomat would going on any new posting. But is there anything in particular about Hong Kong that you would advise for an incoming Canadian Consul General?
Hong Kong is like an onion.
Okay.
You have to peel back the different layers.
Right.
And so, and if you only focus on the outside, you will never appreciate what's happening and the flavor and what it has to offer inside. And all
Is it going to make you cry? Is it going to make you cry, Hong Kong?
No.
Okay, good.
There are tremendous opportunities to engage different communities, and it's also like a sandbox. If you only in a playground, if the kids only play in one sandbox, they miss the opportunities of going over to the other side of the playground and meeting with other friends, and either inviting them to come over and join you, or inviting your friends to come and see them. And what I've really appreciated is getting out in the community, going on calls to companies here to explain about the opportunities to invest in Canada, to meet with a young entrepreneur from Canada who's looking for equity or capital to invest in his technology or her new innovative approach, and to help them commercialize that activity here, and then to engage with civil society, non-governmental organizations, to discuss some of the very important, sensitive issues related to good governance and human rights, and to help them understand where Canada has been and how we can work together and share those values, and ensure that their ambitions are supported going forward. And so my humble recommendations to my successor will be to look for that engagement, and I'm sure that they will take advantage of the incredible knowledge and resources that exist, as I say, at the Consulate General of Canada, but also in the diplomatic community and locally, because I've always felt very welcome and had the occasion to have a terrific dialogue with people. And you have to do that by getting out there and understanding Hong Kong, and getting off Hong Kong Island, going over to Kowloon, to the islands, to the new territories, to the university campuses, and to the 3 Canadian curriculum schools that are here.
Okay, because you do have an advantage over, I think, a lot of consul generals, in that you've got a huge team, you've got a big permanent staff here. Canada's got a long-standing relationship, people in both places. Is there advice you would have for a consul general coming from, say, a small country that maybe had one person here? They would have a much steeper learning curve and not nearly the same resource you'd have. If there was like one thing you could say, this is somebody you should go talk to. This is something you should really look at when you first get here, just to really get into Hong Kong, given that they don't have the kind of machine that Canada has in place here.
If you came to my office, you would see every single business card that I have collected. I guard them very religiously, but I share them too. I share them with my team, I share them with my diplomatic colleagues, and I'm as they have shared their contacts with me when I arrive.
Right.
So always happy to make those introductions. It's not a question of keeping that information private. It's a question of sharing, because if I can give and support a friend and a colleague, a contact with helping them in their agenda, later on down the road, perhaps I will need their support.
Right.
And in that regard, those contacts have been incredibly useful for us at the Consul General to advance our agenda, and I'm very happy to share them with others. And so it's not a question of keeping that information private. It's always a question of making sure that everybody has the opportunity to use these contacts the best as possible, and to go on, as I keep saying more frequently, to the second and third date. Not just have a great first date. Follow up.
That follow up can be tough for a lot of people, especially if they're not as well resourced.
Or they're further away.
I
mean, we're 12 hours to Vancouver. We're a 15-hour flight to Toronto.
Yeah.
It's a 12-hour time change, sometimes 13-hour time change.
Sure.
Very expensive to engage with Asia, and that's what we at the Consulate General and our community here can be the eyes and ears for Canada when those Canadians are not here.
Yeah.
And to help them build those bridges.
Okay. Very good. So I guess, everybody, there are certain things you accomplish while you're here, but like any consul general, there are things that is work in progress. What are some of the big ones that are still in the file that are going to have to be sorted out by your predecessor that the community can look forward to?
I wouldn't say sorted out. I would use more of this ongoing opportunities.
Okay.
So obviously, trade and investment will continue to be very important for Canada here. With the slowing of the mainland Chinese economy, its impact in Hong Kong, we're going to have to up our game and ensure that we brand Canada in a very competitive market. Clearly, when you look at some of the political issues related to the Legislative Council elections in September, and then the debate going forward for the new chief executive, it'll be important for Ottawa to appreciate some of the issues which Hong Kongers are grappling with and those candidates are promoting, and to work with our mainland colleagues to ensure that Canadian values are advanced in that regard. And as you know, our Prime Minister right now is meeting with his G7 colleagues in Japan. Later in August, there'll be the G20 meetings in Hangzhou. We have had quite a few visits by federal ministers, as well as provincial premiers and provincial ministers, senior business leaders, captains of industry. And those people, along with university presidents and others, have helped champion Canada's engagement here.
Sure.
And I know that my successor, working very closely with the team at the Consulate General, will take advantage of those visits to advocate those issues going forward.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll bring it to a close. Maybe wrap this one up. But any final messages either for the people of Hong Kong or for Canadians coming over here, or both, if you prefer?
My final message would be to say thank you, merci beaucoup, Daoje. I mean, I've had an incredible 4 years here. It's gone very, very fast. But as my colleagues at the Consulate General often tease me, I would attend the opening of the door.
Yeah.
And so it's.
But you would do it with style.
Well, I know that I'm probably pushing myself a bit more, but that's the kind of work that I enjoy. Yeah. And the support and the friendships that I've made here have given me that energy. And I have had an incredible team at the Consul General who have embraced some of my out-of-the-box ideas, or have helped me better understand when I need to recalibrate some of those ideas. And, I've enjoyed immensely their support in that regard.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great. Well, I'll tell you, the community's appreciated. We've loved having you here, and we're going to be very, very sad to see you go. There's going to be a couple of tears shed.
Thank you very much.
All right. Cheers.